What do you think happens if Trump is unsuccessful and doesn't make any positive change to America, given that he's got all of the things that you could want, electoral college, popular vote, House?
Yeah, there's no excuse.
But where does that leave American politics if you've had both parties have is there a lot of despondency that'll come down the line if that doesn't?
I think there'll be a lot of schadenfreude. A lot of people say, told you. I think Trump knows that. I think he's aware of the potential opportunity here, the chance to, in a way, have a second go at his legacy, because he had one go at it which ended catastrophically with the January 6th rioting, which was a shameful moment in American history, and that was on him. And I think that he was then sent to the wilderness. I wrote a column or two in early 2022 where I was like, this guy's finished. He's a busted flush. It's all about Ron DeSantis now. Back off, Don. I look at that now and think, wow, how has he got back? And he got back even stronger than last time. And actually, it's because the Democrats did a number of acts of self-harm. They went after him through the law, weaponizing the justice system, choosing ridiculously pathetic things like whether he shuffled paperwork over a one-night stand with Stormy Daniels 20 years ago. Who cares? Americans don't care about that. They care about the fact they can't feed their kids. They care about the fact nearly 10 million people have come over the border in the Biden administration 4-year period. That's what they care about.
It's that looking good over doing good thing again, right? Like optics versus...
I think it's also a visceral hatred of Donald Trump. It is, this Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. I have friends of mine who are completely unhinged. I have family members. If you mention Trump, or if I post a picture of me and Trump with something, congratulations on winning again, utter mayhem.
It's like that Russian sleeper agent activation code.
Yeah. And I'm like, you got to sit back and get the bigger picture with Trump and understand why he's so popular.
I saw from The Hill that AOC is rumored to be running.
I mean, utterly absurd.
What do you make of her chances?
What a shrieking, even more progressive, even more far left candidate version of Kamala Harris. I mean, Trump, they must be rubbing their hands. Please give us AOC, because almost everything she stands for bears no relation to what Americans actually care about. Anything. So she would be the worst possible candidate. If the Democrats don't wake up, they've got to get rid of all this progressive left stuff. It's got to all go. They were at their most electable when they had someone like Bill Clinton, right? Go back to the Bill Clinton playbook. He didn't bother with any of that crap. He just kept it pretty centered.
What would you say to people that go, well, the world's different now? It's a different time.
It's not. We've been told it's different. We've been told we now have to believe the sky's blue when it's actually red. And eventually people have gone, well, hang on. It's red. Why have I got to call it blue? And people have gone, actually, no, I'm done with that, thanks. No, and I'm done with the constant offence that everyone's taking about absolutely everything. I'm done with everyone losing their jobs over the tiniest, transgression of the woke worldview rule book. I'm tired of all of it. I'm tired of identity politics. I'm tired of the ruination of meritocracy, of the altar of wokeism, inclusion. When it doesn't matter how good you are, it matters what your skin color is or your gender. None of that does anyone any good, least of all people from ethnic minorities, or least of all women. If you're trying to promote women's rights, I mean, it made me laugh in the election. Kamala Harris was, I'm for women's rights, abortion. Okay, I agree with you. Okay, on that, I agree with you. Because we in Britain, it's a settled issue. We just don't really have debates about abortion here. We have one of the most lax abortion laws in the world, actually. And I'm all in favour. I'm all for pro-women having the choice. Nothing to do with me, Gov. You just decide, women, what you want to do with your bodies. All in favour of that. But how do you square being the candidate for women's rights when you're also supporting trans athletes in women's sport, as Kamala does? You can't, because you're eroding women's rights. And then people like J.K. Rowling, who put their head over the parapet, they get abused, not least by the Harry Potter stars who owe her their fortunes. And
Rupert Grint's got a £2.8 million
tax bill
to pay, so maybe he'll be back in a good.
Maybe that's penance, for being. I haven't seen his views about her, but I mean, a lot of them have been very scathing about her. And when I sit with them, I had a debate the other day with a guy called Ernest, who comes on quite a lot, is one of our pundits, and he's a funny guy. We have good debates about stuff. He defends the indefensible most of the time, and I quite enjoy it. But he was talking about how you got to respect people's right to limitless self-identity. In other words, if you identify as whatever you like, I have to respect it. Okay, fine. So if I identify now as a black man called Ernest, do you respect it? And of course, after about 10 torturous minutes, he had to admit he wouldn't respect that. So the premise of his argument was all complete bullshit. And I've done this before on International Women's Day a couple of years ago. I identified as a black lesbian. And people, when they first heard it, whoa, you can't use those words on the airways. Well, you can when you're having a debate on International Women's Day about whether gender identity should be completely limitless. And sexuality is a movable feast. And actual racial identities, we've seen some people who are black pretending to be white or white pretending to be black. This has to stop. You have to actually get back to a fact-based society.
I wonder at the moment if the left-right distinction is breaking down a little bit. Because
no question.
Anna Kasparian is turning based.
Interviewed her last week.
Cenk Uygur,
yes.
And Bernie Sanders are either collaborating with Elon or complimenting him in one way or another. So I really wonder,
well, you're seeing a return to the center. You're seeing, and actually most governments in American and British political history have pretty well been hovering around the center. You don't really see extremities on either side. You don't see the far right or far left getting power, really. And it's the more centrist parties with centrist leaders who tend to have the most longevity and most success. And I think that's why I always say about Trump, people think he's extreme. He's not really. If you take away his rhetoric, then his first term of office, he was a pretty moderate Republican president. He didn't even go to war anyway, almost unprecedented for a Republican president. So, it's Trump's rhetoric is really 90% of the reason people hate him. But I think a lot of people this election went, you know what, I'm kind of done with that stuff.
But we see more optics than we do impact now. It is very difficult. No one cares about what the Fed's budget spending this quarter is and show me a spreadsheet, but they will care if somebody says something a bit lewd on a video.
Right.
Because that now is what you optimize for, over looking good, over doing good.
Right.
That's not to say that everything that Trump does is good.
But virtue signaling is a very insidious new scourge in society where you attach, I told a story in my last book about after the George Floyd murder, which I did a lot of stuff on, wrote very strongly worded columns about it, did a lot of stuff on air on Good Morning Britain, which I was hosting at the time about it. But there was a day when we were supposed to all do a black square on our Instagram, and I couldn't understand why. What's the point? And I went to my local squares in the middle of a pandemic, and I just had a bottle of wine. It was a nice sunny afternoon, and I'd forgot all about what I was supposed to be doing. And I posted a picture of my bottle of wine in the twinkling sunlight on my Instagram. And my sons all within about half an hour were, Dad, you got to take that down. I said, why? Dad, we're getting abused by all our friends and you got to take that down. I said, I don't understand. Why are you being abused? Because you got to do the black square down. I said, no, I don't. Why? To prove what? I've written column after column about the horrific murder of George Floyd. I've said hours and hours and hours of interviews with people about this on air. Do you think that meeting a black square is going to make any difference to the promotion of racial equality or correcting racial injustice?
What do you think would happen if the black square demand was made in 2024?
It wouldn't have anything like the same pickup. In fact, it probably wouldn't even be suggested. People have realized these are vacuous, meaningless things, and that the moment that needle on the clock got to midnight, in came the Instagram influencers with all their topless bikini slaps. It's like, whatever. Well, they couldn't wait. They were itching. Get me off this black square. It's killing my business, right? And so to me, it was just vacuous, virtue signaling, the worst kind. It doesn't help anybody. But this kind of on the back of it, the kind of bullying that goes on to bully people into going along with the herd, it's got to stop. It's like the taking the knee thing. I was completely in support of that. But I didn't think people should be compelled to do it. It's a very interesting case in British football. There's a Northern Irish footballer called McLean, who comes from a little part of Northern Ireland in Derry, where Bloody Sunday happened, where literally people in his street were killed by British paratroopers in one of the worst incidents of the Troubles, and the British troops that day behaved appallingly. And he doesn't want to wear a poppy, which we wear to celebrate Remembrance Day, because it doesn't just remember people in the world wars. It remembers all armed conflict involving British troops ever. And that includes Bloody Sunday in his eyes. And he said, I can't look at people in the eye in Derry. And all the time, every year, he gets the same abuse. And every year, he refuses to wear it. And every year, I'd normally post at some stage, why would we expect him to? Why should he be compelled to wear something which actually supports a group of people who, in that particular moment, in Northern Ireland, killed his own people? And I don't think we should bully people like him into doing it.
It feels legitimate. This person's evidently got a thought through, very well-rounded, established, good
argument, which makes sense, but most people don't want to hear it. They just think, he won't wear a poppy, he's a disgusting disgrace.
You understand that is the progeny of people who are using these sorts of social campaigns inappropriately as well.
Yeah.
Because it causes people to have a reaction. The boy who cried woke, that you have this immune response that immediately gets triggered because you're not happy with it. Something else, one of the most interesting things I think over the last few years has been to see your arc through legacy media and now joining us in the muck and the mire as a YouTube degenerate.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how you sort of come to conceptualize the different worlds, what you've learned since coming over to my side of the fence.
Well, it came about because I launched this new show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, and we were launching it on Talk TV in the UK, which was a new network launched by Rupert Murdoch. And concurrently, we set up a YouTube channel. And it was really interesting. Like, I was doing big interviews with Donald Trump and Cristiano Ronaldo and Kanye West and all these people, Ye, as he calls himself now. And we found that we were getting a pretty small audience on Talk TV, which was a linear platform, an hour-long show live with commercial breaks, very traditional. But on YouTube, without any restrictions, we could run the longer versions of interviews if we pre-taped them and so on. And we were getting 10, 20, 30, 40 times the audience. And it would be far more cost-effective to not produce a linear television version. And when this went on for a year or two, I was eventually like, why are we doing this? Why are we losing money hand over fist to cater to probably quite an aging audience? If you look at the average age of cable news in America, audience is 70 now for Fox, CNN, MSNBC. They're old people, right? I mean, that means a lot of them are probably 80. Young people do not watch television, apart from live sport. I know because I've got 4 kids from 31 to 13. None of them watch TV. So you can either pretend that what's happening in front of your eyes isn't happening, or you can see how your habits of your kids are and look at what's happening literally on the numbers. And so we got to about a year ago, February of 2024, and I came off linear TV completely. And we just went full YouTube. And we've now got 3.5 million subscribers, which you will appreciate is not bad in 2.5 years. I think it took Joe Rogan 4 years to get to 1 million. Not that I'm comparing. I am comparing. And we now get millions of views for our content. On almost pretty much everything. And sometimes we get real poppers, like Bassem Youssef, the Egyptian comedian, political activist. 22 million people watch that. The real-life stalker from, or Martha, alleged stalker from Baby Reindeer. Again, 16, 17 million people watch that on our YouTube channel. We would never got anything like that on linear television.
What about from the sort of rhetoric perspective, or from your, journalisming? You always wanted to be a journalist. You always loved the news, so on and so forth. But how much is this a new way to assess the day's stories? And what has it unlocked anything, or is it just kind of a different package on?
I think for me, what I love 2 parts of it. One, being a ringmaster to really good debates with smart people. I have a no dummies rule, and we've exercised it a few times where people don't get invited back if they're too dumb, because nobody wants to hear dumb people debating serious topics. We do a lot of serious debates, whether it's American election debates, whether it's Ukraine, Russia, whether it's Israel-Hamas war, P. Diddy scandal, whatever it may be. You need smart people. And that's my criteria for booking guests for the debates. But also, I want to balance it up. I want to have equal numbers on both sides, smart, debating it. And when you get it right, it's magic, because there's very few places in the world doing that. I mean, we're pretty the only ones in the YouTube space who don't have an ideological position. If you look at people I really admire in the space, people like Ben Shapiro, Megyn Kelly and others, they obviously come at it from an unashamedly conservative bias. I don't. Similarly, on the left, Mehdi Hassan and others come at it. Cenk Uygur, although he's beginning to move quite rapidly, I've noticed, to the dark side, as he would put it. But they're from the left. I'm in the middle, genuinely in the middle. People could not position me into Republican or Democrat or here Conservative or Labour. I don't position myself in that way. I see myself foremost as a journalist. And what I like now is that I can literally act as a journalist to everybody. Just when they say something, fact check it in real time, ask them the right questions, challenge everybody equally. And I think people learn a lot from those kind of debates. I do. My favorite debate is at the end of 90 minutes. I go, do you know something? I've really learned a lot today. You might all have different slants on what you've been telling me, but I've learned a lot of basic information about this.